I don't see the benefit of dead drilling anymore, where like, say, just repping out leg drags. I've done it. I thought that was great. Repping out leg drags, repping out leg drags. To me, that's just the benefit of that is kind of that, that mental toughness, the grind of just drilling it. And I'm not even going to like it. And I'm just going to go.
Welcome to Forever White Belt, the podcast where we delve into the world of Jiu Jitsu and its fascinating stories of its practitioners and thought leaders. I'm your host, Adolfo Ferranda. In today's episode, we have a special guest who embodies dedication and experience on the mats, Rob Cole, a first-degree black belt with over 21 years of training. Rob's journey in Jiu Jitsu has been nothing short of remarkable. He earned his purple belt under the renowned Eddie Bravo, known for his innovative approach to grappling. Continuing to hone his skills, Rob was awarded his black belt from the highly respected Priit Mihkelson, a testament to his technical proficiency. But Rob's expertise doesn't end there. As a BJJ Globetrotters coach, he has not only expanded his knowledge, but also had the privilege of sharing it with aspiring practitioners around the world. He's also earned a black shirt under the legendary Frank Shamrock, further showcasing his dedication to martial arts. Beyond his achievements in jiu-jitsu, Rob has also ventured into the world of mixed martial arts, showcasing his skills inside the cage. However, what truly sets him apart is his ecological approach to teaching jiu-jitsu. Rob incorporates these principles into his training and teaching methods, fostering a deeper sense of learning and understanding of the art. Join us as we delve into the insights of Rob Cole as he shares his journey, knowledge, and unique perspective on the art of jiu-jitsu. Welcome to Forever White Belt. Rob, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
So, Rob, you have a very interesting background and journey of jiu-jitsu, I've noticed, because when we were doing our research, we saw you at various belt levels. Rob is a black belt, and you have all these amazing instructors, purple belt. You even have an Eddie Bravo belt, and you are a black belt under friend of the show, Priit Mihkelson, correct?
Yeah, I got my first stripe under Priit last year. And I actually, before even jiu-jitsu, I got my black shirt from Frank Shamrock. So that was my original grappling introduction. And, black belt in karate, Jeet Kune Do concepts, apprentice instructor. I was so obsessed with like kicks and, I got into it because of Van Damme. I'm 12 or 13 and I rented Bloodsport and Kickboxer, the classics. And I'm like, well, look at this guy, so I just started practicing splits in my bedroom, before I even joined karate, so I'm like, all right, let's do this. And I've been doing martial arts for, over 30 years now, all because of Bloodsport. I'm from Connecticut, which I live now again. But at 20 something years old, me and my wife, hey, let's just move, and then we just went across the country and moved to California. And I was still doing, Jeet Kune Do. And we were like, I was trying to figure out what this grappling was. I had the Renzo Gracie, Craig Kukuk tapes, the VHS tapes, and we would just have wrestling mats and we were just practicing arm bars and anything and cranking on legs. Yeah, actually a blue belt who was a rare blue belt, like in Connecticut. I think he might have learned in New York or something. He just came by our school at the Jeet Kune Do school one day and he just tore us all up. And I'm like, okay, that's what real training's like. And I thought the blue belt was like the thing. Then I moved out to California. And I'm like looking for some jiu-jitsu skills in the Bay Area. There's a lot of stuff going around. They had like Ralph Gracie, other Gracie was around there. But I'm like, hey, there's this Frank Shamrock guy. I've watched him on Pancrase, him and his brother. I watched Ken and then I seen Frank and I'm like, all right, so I'll play, do a little jiu-jitsu. I signed up with Michael Jen. I think he was one of the first black belts under Roy Harris. So I was doing one day a week jiu-jitsu and then I started training at Frank's a couple times a week. And I was doing both. And Frank's like, hey, you could just keep coming here. You can still do your jiu-jitsu, but if you want to, fight and do stuff, I didn't like the gi at all. So I'm like, all right, let me just, stick with Frank, and that's when he was winning the UFC title and all that. And I'm like, all right, I think I like this stuff, So I started there and we would train hard. It was much different back then in the late 90s. It was pretty much show up, train hard, and you either survived or you didn't. And I always loved the grappling part. I still did the striking. I did all the wrestling, which, obviously grappling, but I like the ground game. We were doing leg locks like day one. The first technique I learned was a knee bar, which was like, you didn't do that back then in jiu-jitsu. So I've always been kind of on the in the beginning, I was kind of always on the outside of the jujitsu world. You had the submission grappling and you had the jujitsu people in their gi and they're like leg locks are, junk. And, this is how we got to train. And I was just always kind of on the outside of that for a long time. It was always sub grappling focused. So I just stuck with that. And then I just immediately, after a year or two, I just started teaching under Frank. Everywhere I go, I seem like I always end up teaching somewhere now. So maybe they like my instruction. Maybe I'm personable enough. I don't know. I always seem to end up teaching wherever I go.
I think you're a great teacher.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
We should probably tell the listeners as well that you're affiliated now for I don't know how long, but with the Globetrotters as an instructor with them. And Rob's got a great video out, or Globetrotters does, in conjunction with them.
Yeah, thank you. That was my first camp I taught at the Globetrotters in Arizona. And now I'm teaching again at the end of this month in Maine, and then I'm doing Arizona again in November. It's a great experience. I love it. I've always been an instructional guy, even from back in the 90s. I don't know if you remember Panther Productions in the back of Black Belt magazine. I had all those instructionals.
Wow.
Yeah,
you got it all, man.
I was doing Jeet Kune Do. They had some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think some guys were like blue belts and they were passing themselves off as black belts. Somebody doing like combat sambo, and I would just get anything. And then me and my buddies, my Jeet Kune Do buddies, we would just train and just figure stuff out. And we were also doing like stick fighting from the Dog Brothers. I don't know if you remember those. So I would do like full contact stick fighting, just with headgear and handgear, and that's it. And I've always loved martial arts, constant learning, reading, listening to stuff. I just always been into learning. That's just my main goal.
Are you still like on top of that? Like, I mean, you mentioned these early books and magazines and VCR tapes, and you mentioned VHS, CDs, DVDs, CD-ROMs. Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
And then early YouTube kind of weird stuff. And then now it's gotten just insane, obviously fanatics, but it's almost now to the point where like everyone's kind of putting on their own, and then you can see AOJ Plus and Lachlan Giles's thing. And now even personal coaching, personal PT, jiu-jitsu reviews of your own rolling in tournaments by professionals. I mean, it's completely insane, right?
Oh, I love it personally because I've always been in that. And in reality, in my over 20 years of just grappling, of submission grappling and jiu-jitsu, the gi, no gi, whatever, I've probably learned more through online resources than the actual instructors I've trained with. And that's not a slight on them because we don't have the same body type. We don't have the same experience. I've trained under guys that are pressure passing monsters and guys that are doing this and that. I'm not a big guy. So my game is always, I've had to find what works for me. I'll try to learn something. If it just doesn't work, maybe throw it away, try it again. Or like in that Globetrotter video, the rear triangle. It took me like 20 years to get good at triangles because it never worked for me. My legs are thick and I would always go to arm bars or something else. And I just never really did triangles. But as I started coaching more and teaching more, I'm like, I can't show people my game. I need to have a really big scope of jiu-jitsu to train people. And I'm like, if this person wants to do triangles, I need to understand why that works. And then I started, reverse engineering it, working it, looking at different instructionals. Everything started coming together, and it's like, then I started finally triangling people. The way I trained it, the way I, look at it, talk to other people, and I still watch stuff all the time, constantly. I was on the original MG in Action, Marcelo's site, when that first came out. Then I switched over to Mendez Brothers. That's probably one of my biggest spurts in jiu-jitsu was probably joining their site. I think their coaching and teaching is amazing. And then, I did the Eddie Bravo stuff. And then more recently, Priit. And I send videos to Priit. He watches me roll and we critique, talk about it. Then, I get to meet up with him at a seminar and at Globetrotters. And I enjoy learning. And I think I love the name of this show, because that's how I've always done it. I'm like, as a coach, I still want to learn all the time. I don't stop. I feel like if you're going to be a coach, you need to keep learning just as a student. I've heard you ask other desks what makes a good student, what makes a good coach. And I think if you go under the guise of learning, I think you're going to be all right because you put yourself in so many different situations. And I think one of my, not a pet peeve is that I've trained with some great people over the years and they just show their game and they just kind of stop learning stuff and they don't keep up on what's new. For me, I probably would have gave up this stuff if it was just self-defense back in the day. Hoist Gracie kick. double
Yeah.
under. It's still great. It works. It
Sure.
was proven. But at this point in my life, I'm getting up there in age and I still love to train and I'm not getting into fights. To me, this is all about learning. It's about growth. And as we're adults, it's our chance to play.
You mentioned that, you've consumed all this content and, you've been a subscriber of many things and seen different sort of online instructions and magazine and books, as we've mentioned. Can you talk about filtering the stuff that wasn't for you? Did you, I imagine, you saw some bad stuff.
Oh, yeah.
How do you go through that process of vetting?
What I think as I keep doing this stuff over the years, I think Kit Dale was one of the first ones to be like talking about concepts. Like Kit doesn't get a lot of credit now, but he was like concepts, and he didn't really have much stuff out, some videos here and there. And I wasn't gonna, I didn't buy any of his stuff yet at the time. So I was like, okay, concepts, cool idea. And then you got Priit. And then I start thinking, I'm like, but the Mendez brothers, like Rafa Mendez, he's the best jiu-jitsu player I've ever seen for offense, defense, gi, no gi. I don't think there's anybody better. I have these, I remember these things like he got past one time at black belt, and that was against Cobrinha, like his first year at black belt.
Cobrinha.
Yeah,
Another amazing guy.
I love Cobrinha. And Rafa, like it's amazing what he does. So you watch his stuff and he could talk technique for, an hour. He could break down the littlest grip, but when I look at stuff like that, I try to pull the concept from it. And then I remember when I really wanted to get good at guard retention. I think they were the first guys to really talk about guard retention. Because in the past, and I'm talking about, this is like 10 years now, like when Mendez Brothers first came out online, everybody had like guard recovery or this and that, but nobody talked about retention. Not getting past how you align yourself. And I'd watch all the techniques and the drills and this and that. But then when I'm rolling with people and I'm like trying to learn guard retention, I just kept remembering in my head, control the distance, always have a frame, always have something in front of them, and don't let them control your head. And you could pretty much put that to any guard. Have your feet in front of you. They get by your feet, have your knee, don't let them pass your hip line, and don't let them control your head. And fight with your hands. There's guard retention right there. You could apply that to anything. Reverse Delahiva, spider guard, it doesn't matter. That's why I've never been like a big half guard player or deep half, especially because I'm smaller. Because if I lose that underhook, they're pinning me, put me flat on the back, and then they're passing my legs. I'm not going to give you that free. Keenan has a great video on the layers of guard. I'm not going to let you pass my feet first, then I'm not going to let you pass my knees. Because like that half guard with the underhook, you're only fighting for the underhook. So it's kind of almost like a 50-50 shootout. You either get it or you don't. And then you end up getting smashed. And I'm like, I don't want to get smashed. That's not my game. I don't want to battle you forever there. Even now, I'm older. I'm 48 years old. I still play an open guard game, a lot of movement. I think you should still do that even when you're older. Not just get stuck. Just, this is my game. So those concepts from the Mendez brothers, those guys, and then Priit with the defensive stuff, Chris Payne's, Lachlan. Like Lachlan's a super technical guy and he'll break down everything, but you still got to listen to what else they're saying. It could be an 8-hour DVD with a billion techniques, like Danaher. I like his first DVD because that's where he talks about the concepts of it. So that's where I get more out of, is learning why that stuff worked. I don't want a technique hunt anymore because I think techniques are a little snapshot in time of when it worked just right then. Because when we roll and train, that technique, it's not going to be there when resistance is there. So you could drill it a million times, but then somebody starts smashing into you and grabbing you and moving this way or just changing their angle a little different. You got to come up with something. So I stick to the concept of it.
You mentioned drilling. Let's talk about that. It's one of the things we talked about earlier in our conversations was this notion of dead drilling. Can you, first of all, explain to the listener what is dead drilling and your thoughts on it?
So I will preface this with there's a lot of great people that drill all the time, and they've produced amazing jiu-jitsu, and they still produce amazing people, and they drill like crazy. But for me, at this point, I don't see the benefit of dead drilling anymore, where like, say, just repping out leg drags. I've done it. I thought that was great. Repping out leg drags, flipping out leg drags. To me, that's just the benefit of that is kind of that, that mental toughness, the grind of just drilling it. And I'm not even going to like it. And I'm just going to go.
Or as a warm up?
I don't even do it as a warm up. What other people do, But this is me personally. This is what I'm talking about for what I do and what I teach, because I feel like when you're training jiu-jitsu, Dr. Rob Gray, he does all this ecological approach and ecological dynamics for all different sports. He's got some amazing books. And he said the greatest piece of training equipment ever invented was another human. If you show up to jiu-jitsu and there's people there, use that person, use that body. And if you look at drilling, so say me and you are drilling together and I rep out 20 leg drags and now you go. Now you do your 20. Then I do my other side 20 and you do your 20. Just right there, I'm doing half of the training and you're just missing out on the other half. So if you just drill for a half hour, you're only drilling for like 15 minutes if it's equal. And now you're doing it out of context and it's not coupled with any type of resistance or anything. So to me, if you show up and if I show up, I want that full volume of training time of live jiu-jitsu. That's how I teach now. I haven't shown technique or like drills in a year or two, maybe now. Here and there I do some, but it's after already going through the other stuff. Actually putting you in a position, letting you go, figuring it out, but you got some tasks, you got some goals, and you can actually work through it. I'm more of a guide. I like to see myself as a guide right now instead of like me controlling a video game controller and I'm just like, you go here, 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 here. You need that autonomy, and it'll help your learning process.
So help me understand then, is this like different than situational sparring?
Yeah, so situational sparring is great, but this is situational sparring and different slices with certain tasks and goals associated with it.
Can you give me a scenario?
Yeah, like I taught a class. I was teaching some of my teens that I train, and I started them on the back, and they already had the straitjacket grips. So right from there, I said, what you want to do is you want to try to trap that top arm with your leg. Anything you can do to trap that top arm, get the other arm and start working for the choke. Now, the person inside the choke, their job is to not let that happen, but they just can't explode and run away. They have to stay there. I teach them a defensive posture from like the Priit type stuff where it gives them some safety, and then they hand fight. Jiu-jitsu's constant hand fighting. It's always looking for space and looking for different things. So they go from there. You get choked, you lose, you tap. No big deal. Now we do that for a little bit. Now you're figuring out how to trap arms. You lose it, to grab it again because you already know what the starting position was. So now I do that. We run those. They're both getting it. They're both going live. Then they switch. And then the next round, I might add a little thing. We're saying, okay, now you can try not to get your arms trapped, but now you're looking to get out. You're looking to clear hooks and you're looking to start getting up. So now the person on the back, they are trying to trap your arms, but they're trying to keep you there. So they're literally doing the whole back experience in these things. And I really haven't shown them super, super technical little details of how to get to it. So it's crazy because you watch it in action, you see these kids or people and you're like, they don't really understand what the straitjacket is at first or anything. But then when you give it to them and you put them there and you give them a goal, they get there. And they start understanding that. It's really interesting, and I'm loving it. I've been doing this it all started because of the defensive stuff from the Priit stuff.
Just a reminder to please give us a 5-star review on Apple Music and Spotify and become a VIP member for only 99 cents a month. Get ad-free episodes at anchor.fm/foreverwhitebelt/subscribe and check us out on Instagram at Forever White Belt Show. Go buy your Forever White Belt swag at teespring.com/forever-white-belt. Check us out on YouTube now at Forever White Belt. Finally, if you ever get to beautiful Northern California, please come roll with us at North Bay Jiu Jitsu in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. They're amazing instructors and everyone there are great people. Mention the podcast and get 2 weeks free. Let's get into some context for the listener then, because we keep saying Priit, and just for those people, can you give some background on, obviously we know who Priit Mihkelson is, but why don't you give some background?
Yeah, Priit is a defensive jiu-jitsu guy, and he teaches mostly from postures, and he has certain, concepts of protecting your underhooks, and he has these different positions, turtle, panda, running man, whatever, and he teaches from these postures. So when I started training that and trying to figure out what this is, and the nature of training defense is you can't train defense without offense. So if I can't rep out defense. I'm not going to go stop the collar. Like this doesn't work like that. I have to put myself in these postures. My story is when I started learning it, it was the start of the pandemic and my gyms were shut down. So my daughter, she was 12, almost 13 at the time, and she just started doing jujitsu like for 6 months. She finally wanted to do it, and I was teaching her class, and we're just at the house, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to play these postures and you just attack me. You do whatever you want. Look for a seatbelt, look for this, look for that. And I was just training it against her. And I was just training now. And then I started seeing her adapt. And she wasn't looking for techniques anymore. She was looking for seatbelts, underhooks, pinning my arm, pinning my elbow, anything to keep me out of these postures. And then I started training out my buddies. We go into the basement, and then now these are adults, purple belt, a brown belt. They couldn't get anything. I'm just going into these postures and they're attacking. And I'm like, man, my daughter's kind of doing better than you right now because she was adapting to the open spaces. She was looking for open spaces. She wasn't just looking for techniques. She wasn't looking for a clock choke or whatever. She was just looking for openings. Obviously I'm scaling it to a kid compared to an adult, but I could just shut down and then they wouldn't get it. So then as I started to open up more and then I start playing different positions and postures, and I'm like, all right, is it the postures are super strong or is it the way I'm training it's actually helping a lot too? Because I'm not repping anything. And then I started noticing my buddy who I let attack me all the time, he's going with other people and he's just tearing them up when he gets on their back because they don't really have the same defensive reactions. They kind of do it a little differently, this and, leaving all their underhooks and everything opened up. So it's kind of funny seeing that adaptation happening. And then I'm like, okay, when I started teaching again, I'm like, let me just roll with this. Let me just not show as much technique and let's teach concepts. I took everything, Kit Dale, Mendez Brothers, Lachlan, everybody was talking about concepts and how to do them. Priit, Chris Paynes, the Globetrotter guys, guys like that. If I leave somebody out, my bad. And then when I started teaching, I said, okay, well, let me put it into different situations. So I'm teaching teens, and there's like a 13-year-old girl who's only been training for like 3-4 months. And I just said, I'm teaching X guard. And X guard seems like a pretty complicated position. Definitely when you're from the old days, you would never teach X guard to white belts or whatever. So I literally put them in X guard because it's not hard to put somebody at the end position. You're going to hold the leg and you're going to put your hooks, and the game starts where the top person, all they have to do is not fall down. And the person on the bottom, you can either go backward, forward, left, or right. There's not too many ways you could go. Just stay in it and just move them around and see what you find, right? So now the top person's learning balance, which is undertrained attribute for your jiu-jitsu. Everybody talks about technique and strength. And balance is huge. I put them in X guard, and after like 5 minutes, I look over, I'm watching people do their things and, they're trying to pick up, they're this, kids are falling over, kids are getting a balance. And then she calls me over. She's like, Coach, check this out. And I go, okay, let me see what you got. And she just took the leg that was under the hook that was under the knee and just dropped it to the ankle and swept. And the first person fell over. And she's like, is this right? And I go, well, did they fall over? I'm like, yeah. I go, you just rediscovered a technique that one of the greatest jiu-jitsu players of all time, Marcelo Garcia, teaches on a DVD. Her face lit up. She was so excited. And I'm like I thought to myself, now if I showed her that technique, you're going to learn it. But no, she rediscovered it. Now she's going to own that technique. And she's like, I think I like X-Guard now. I'm like, that's awesome. X-Guard's fun. And it's not just this drilling of, because if I keep giving you techniques, you're always going to need me for another technique. And I don't want that. My job is to make you good enough to where you could discover your own. We could talk about jiu-jitsu. You could figure out anything you want after a while. If you need some help, come to me. I'd love to see when people enjoy learning. Because we want it to be fun, right? I'm not coming here to be miserable, or I'm here to enjoy and learn and move my body in different ways. So I'm like, okay, if I could do that with X-Guard, I could put them in right in reverse De La Riva, which is a super advanced guard, right? I had the kids last night. I just put them in reverse De La Riva. And I'm like, okay, so top player, you're just going to keep pressuring through. You're going to try to clear off the hooks. Bottom player, just hold on. Hold on as long as you can. Keep that ankle keep that hook. You could use your arm any way you want. Then after they get safe doing that, now look to off balance somebody. How would you off balance somebody? You already got your foot on your hip. The other one goes to the ankle. They fall over. And now, then add another layer to the game. I always do, if you start with a sweep, you never accept the sweep. You got to get back up. Any type of sweep that happens to you, you have a chance to get back up unless they just perfectly knock you down. I'm always talking about getting back up to your feet, never accepting it. So now they sweep them. They're holding ankles. They fall over. Now they're both trying to get back up. So you have to finish that sweep, or you have to try to get back up, and then you're put back in that position again. And it's just constantly live training in jiu-jitsu. And I've seen so much growth from like these kids doing this. And that's how I do my own personal training. Like, I still meet like once a week with my buddies. We go down to the basement, black belt, a purple belt, we have a blue belt come by, whatever. We just roll, but they're rolling, but I always go in with a plan. That's how I learn. Right? I'm always thinking I'm either going to play defense, or I'm going to look for this leg locks, or I'm going to go to the back. I always have a plan of what I want to do. That's how I've always gotten better over the years.
It seems like a deeper form of learning is what you're teaching to me. It's when you talk about the scenario with the young lady who rediscovered this Marcelo, move, it becomes more embedded versus just memorization.
Yeah, it becomes, you actually, you own it. It's not you going through this catalog of techniques. Okay, now I'm going to pull out that sweep. No, you see it, they're off balance, you attack it, and then you go, and it's amazing that when you put yourself in these situations, you don't have to memorize things. Because what's the old saying, in any type of sport, when you start thinking, you're not acting, you're not doing. And you see it all over. It's like, to me, it gives them that autonomy. It gives them that personal growth. It gives them that satisfaction. And they're doing it in a constrained environment. Greg Stouters, he's the super ecological approach guy right now. And he's like hardcore into never showing a technique or whatever. And I think it's a good way to go, because I see it combined with the defensive stuff. But then because I put this meme online months ago, Morpheus. What if I told you defensive jiu-jitsu was all about offense? Because everybody's like, oh, you're just playing defense. No, I'm learning about defense, but guess what you're doing? You're learning about offense. And then I don't always stay defensive. I do when I can. It's always this back and forth. And that's how, to me, jiu-jitsu should be trained. Not should be. I'm speaking in broad terms here. Train any way you want. I'm just talking about what I do and how I've learned and how I feel like I've gotten better over the years. If you look at my belt checker page, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I have a different instructor for every belt level. And it was kind of odd when Christian's like, hey, you got to jump on belt checker for the Globetrotter stuff. We like to verify people. And I put all my stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I've had a different person every time. And that's not just because I left gyms. I've lived in Connecticut, California, Florida, went back to California, and now back to Connecticut. So I've had a lot of experience in a lot of different places.
That's what I mean by we said that you're eclectic. But that must have really, that's really cool that you got that many different looks. That can be really beneficial. Having attended one of those Globetrotters in the Arizona camp a couple years ago, that's one of the things I really, really loved about it, was just how many different looks I got from just a plethora of black belts, in just a few days. It was incredible. And if you could do that throughout the career of your jiu-jitsu, like you're talking about your belt journey, that's really advantageous as well.
Yeah, I feel like it's made me really well-rounded. And I kind of think of it like I follow a lot of movement people, and they're always talking about being a generalist, or fitness people that what are they GPP, general physical preparedness for any situation. So I kind of look at it as JJP, general jiu-jitsu preparedness. If I go to a school or a Globetrotters, I want to be able to do no gi, leg locks, gi, some stand up, some whatever, and just have it all, have all that. I think sometimes we get too honed in on just our game. And I think it's great if that's, competition, or you have a certain goal. I always I think I even in a Globetrotter video, I have a new A game every 6 months. because I want to keep learning different things because that keeps the brain going, keeps me learning, and you have transfer over to other aspects of your jiu-jitsu. It's like, oh, I don't want to learn berimbolos because they're whatever. Well, try and learn them, get frustrated, and guess what? People are going to try to berimbolo you. So if you're kind of trying to learn them, you kind of know why they work. So I give me more chance to stop it. It's like leg locks. I was doing leg locks in the late 90s. And I would train with some jiu-jitsu people and I would grab their ankle and they would just like tap immediately. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of crazy. I had that, and then I would roll with jiu-jitsu people, and then they would pass my guard and smash me and this and that because I didn't have the jiu-jitsu guard structure. I had the MMA style guard and the scrambling, the movement and all that. So I took that scrambling movement, and then when I went to the I finally started doing the gi or whatever. I would catch people in transition and this and that because I had that no-gi, fast-paced experience. My jiu-jitsu experience, like, it was all no-gi Shamrock MMA. It was submission grappling at first. I got my black shirt under Frank. I was teaching. And then I moved and I went to train at my buddy's, Rich Crunkleton. He was in the UFC and WEC, and he got into jiu-jitsu, and I was training at his place, and he had this black belt instructor that was training. The guy was like 115 pounds. And I put the gi on and he just like tore me up. Cross collar chokes and all this stuff. I'm like, this is crazy. And then at first I'm like, man, this gi stuff is cheating. So I tried to learn it, and then I moved again, so I went back, and then I wasn't doing the gi anymore. I only had a couple little spurts of it, and then I got into the Eddie Bravo stuff. I had a little 10th Planet gym for a little while in Connecticut with my buddy. I got my purple belt from Eddie. Then that kind of went under because my buddy couldn't train anymore. I'm like, you know what? I've been doing this stuff a long time. Let me try to learn the gi. I was always a no gi for life guy, right? I'm like, I don't need that gi. So I went into the gi and I said to myself every day, I am not doing any leg locks, any guillotines. Everything's got to be gi related. I'm looking for bow and arrows. I'm going to use this. I'm going to play spider guard. I would come home and I would sit at the couch and watch TV at night, and I would like take my hands and like put them in ice because my fingers were like killing me because I was playing spider guard and lasso and De La Hiva, worm guard. Oh man, I was doing it all. And I'm like, I need to learn this gi stuff. So I got good at the gi, decent level. Then I got my brown belt, and I wasn't doing no gi anymore. Then I started saying, well, I'm a little older. Maybe the gi's better for me. Got my brown belt, and then that gym closed down. So I went to another gym and I was teaching there. Finally, I was going to get my black belt. I was doing this for, I forgot how long I was doing the gi, maybe 5-6 years, but that was after years and years of no gi. So I knew how to grapple. I just didn't understand the gi. I went through all that gi stuff, and then I finally got my black belt in the gi because I never cared about belts coming up. I was a no-gi guy. We didn't care about that stuff. And then I started playing in no-gi again, doing both, because I'm like, I got to get my leg lock game back up. Because there's been so many advances in the leg lock game since back in the day. More studying, more learning. I have to have something I'm working on all the time. And like right now, I'm working on coaching. I read books on coaching. I watch videos on coaching, podcasts on coaching. To me, if you're a coach or a teacher, it's not just showing up and teaching. Like, try to learn from these people that are really good at it. And it doesn't even have to be jiu-jitsu related. Like this Rob Gray guy, he's a baseball guy. But then you listen to these podcasts from football, volleyball, soccer. This is where the money is. These people are actually putting money into these sports, and they're paying their coaches. So you should listen to these guys, or at least give it a shot. You don't have to do what they're doing, but try to expand your knowledge base on what you're doing. I'm always a forever white belt at this point, I think. It's like the blue belt blues, right? Everybody quits at blue belt. I mean, that's the joke. I was at this one gym, and we just had a crop of like 6 or 7 new blue belts that got it on their promotion ceremony or whatever. So they got to come to my class. It was blue belt and up. I go, listen, you're a blue belt now. You've been doing it for a year or two. But to me, blue belt is the first belt in jiu-jitsu, because we're right now here standing with a blue belt. Somebody could walk in off the street and say, I want to sign up. They're automatically a white belt. You're a blue belt now. And guess what? Those people that are standing off to the side, the 2-stripe, 3-stripe white belts, I go, they're coming for you because they want your belt. They're like, man, that guy got promoted. I'm going to go after him. And now those purple and brown belts that were just kind of letting you explore and play jiu-jitsu, now they're coming for you. Now they feel like they could take you out, because you're a blue belt. So that's what happens to blue belts. They train for 2 years. They think they get good. Happened, me. And then you get smacked. Then you get it from both sides. You got the white belts gunning for you. You got the higher belts not taking it easy on you anymore. And you're like, man, I just did 2 years and I'm really not that good anymore. You think that, but that's just, then you just got to power through, and we got to make it easier for those people to get through. That's always and then I tell them, when you make it to purple, then you're probably in it for the rest of your life at some point. Yeah, you just got to get through that blue belt stage. And I think a lot of those blue belts, I train with a couple of them still, they're still training, and they're purple, some are purple and this and that. So that's good, because you're going to lose some people. But I don't want people to just bounce out after they get their blue belt. If you're feeling bad about yourself and you feel like you're plateauing or you're not learning, just show up. It always feels better when I train when I don't train.
What about those discouraging times, like when you get injured, for instance?
I've been training for 30 years and I haven't had too awful of injuries. I got a shoulder that I got dropped on 15 years ago in a demonstration. I showed a guy this throw and he's like, oh, let me try that. Boom, dumped me on my shoulder. Bumps and bruises. So that stuff is tough. You have to power through. I would say keep learning. I would say watch some videos. Keep yourself in the game, because it's easy to not do jiu-jitsu anymore after you stop. It becomes a habit. Just like going to jiu-jitsu becomes a habit, not going becomes a habit. And at the gym I train at now, Ascension Athletics, we've had some people that were hurt, and it's great seeing them still show up and watch the classes. They're not there all the time, but they're popping in and they're taking a look, and they're going on YouTube, they're checking out videos, and there's so much knowledge out there. So back in the 90s, if you didn't show up to class, you weren't getting anything. you just have to go. And injury is a tough part. That's why I focus so much on mobility and movement for myself personally. I think that keeps me going. A couple of years ago, I came home and then I started feeling my hip get really tight, and then I just dropped to the floor for like 2 hours with this awful sciatic pain. I'm like, I'm 45 years old or 46 at the time. I'm like, this isn't good. So, I started doing some research on some movement stuff, on different things. And I just make it a routine to, work on stuff like sitting in a resting squat, using passive hangs for my shoulders. That fixed my shoulder that I hurt years ago. Just constant throughout the day. Like, I don't have set times I go work out. I just randomly sit in a squat. Don't sit around as much as I used to. More walking, more whatever. You got to keep yourself going. And that's going to keep you on the mats, in my opinion. I go outside in my yard and I do like animal crawls and cartwheels and handstands and all that stuff. I just want to move my body in the most possible ways I can and have some mobility in those ranges. Not just flexibility, some strength in those ranges. Because there's going to be some people torquing on my arms and my shoulders and my knees, and I want to have that strength in that range. So that's, I'm just saying, especially if you're older, even if you're in 20s, whatever, if you get 30s, whatever, work on your mobility. Don't neglect it, because it pays off, in my opinion.
No, I agree. We just spoke with Diana Wang, who's with Open Mat Physio, and that's one of the key takeaways that I took was, and you specifically mentioned it, was strength in, an end of range type of strength, is so important. I never thought of that, because I remember long ago, and I've had other students talk to me about this too, is, how do I get more flexible and that kind of thing? And I remember early on seeing Eddie Bravo talk about, hey man, when you're just watching TV, just do a little bit of, a butterfly stretch, a little bit, and over time, and sure enough, I've become a lot more flexible just by doing little passive stuff like that. So I love your notion of just sort of passively throughout the day doing like a deep squat kind of thing, or some animal crawls or something like that randomly. I think that's just fantastic insight.
Yeah, it adds up. It's just, first you sit in that resting squat, and that's pretty much guard retention right there, getting your knees back to your chest, Oh,
wow.
Yeah, you just, if you sit in a resting squat, kept your back. I remember when I first started doing it, and I've been a pretty decently flexible guy through my life. And I'm like, man, my shins and hip were on fire after like 30 seconds, a minute.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy. And then now I can sit there for 10 minutes or whatever,
Wow.
It's harder getting up, but,
yeah.
But then I feel great afterwards. And I do like, spinal waves. That's one has been a great thing for me.
What's the spinal wave? Can you describe that?
You could do a whole bunch of different ways. So you can just stand up and it's just moving your head out and then your chest. And then, so you're just moving your body like this. You're just constantly moving your spine. It just gets your spine moving more in ways we just don't do it. When you're a kid and you watch kids, they'll like be on the couch, they'll be watching TV upside down, or they're laying on the ground, or they're sitting to this or that. But then you get to be like 13 or whatever, and they're always like, stop acting like a kid. Stand up, sit down, stop moving around so much, stop doing this. Then we start doing that, and then we start driving in our car. Then we go to the office, we sit on our couch, and you're literally sitting all day long or just standing straight up. And then you forget how to bend over. You forget how to move your body this way. So in my opinion, I'm like, I'm going to keep moving different ways all the time. I'm out there in my backyard, crawling like a lizard and doing bear crawls. It's like, but I feel great. I feel great afterwards, like I talked about, I don't do technique much anymore, but I was like one of those, you got to have the perfect technique type people. But I always used to say, hey, you do jujitsu for a while, and then you start moving like a jujitsu person. If you learn to move better, not even the context of jujitsu, it's going to give you more ability to move when you're doing jujitsu. I know you had Charles Harriet on, who breakdancing and all that stuff, and Gio and all those guys. Cobrinha, he was capoeira. I've played with some capoeira, and if you can balance yourself and move in that position, you're going to give yourself more affordances to do things in jiu-jitsu. You're just getting overall for your health of your life and movement. You have better movement opportunities. You can use that in jiu-jitsu. It's like it doesn't have to always be this super perfect jiu-jitsu technique. Sometimes you need to move in an awkward way. I think it reduces injuries. If I could balance and post on my hand and I'm used to being in a cartwheel or a handstand or a lizard crawl or whatever, I can move in those positions because you never know what's going to happen. You're going to be falling a lot. You're going to get swept. You're going to get dumped on your head. You got to be able to tuck, roll, turn. That's where those injuries come from. It's putting your hand somewhere wrong and now your wrist is this because you're not used to doing that. So like we were talking about balance earlier, you see Jeff Glover, he does all the balance on the workout ball. Frank Shamrock was doing that back in the late 90s. And we would spin and flip and then he'd be like, hey, come up with something creative off of this ball. And you do like a leg over pass or you try to do a flip off of it. And that just gives you more opportunities for movement. Jiu-jitsu is a game of movement. It's a game of movement and it's a game of stopping movement. That's why submissions work. You stop somebody from moving. When I teach escapes, I don't teach technical escapes because escapes are only happen when there's opportunity for movement. If you have me in side control and I'm start spamming my side control escape I learned from some DVD, if it doesn't work, that's all I got. No, I'm going to protect myself, protect my, and I'm going to start moving. Now you have to chase me. Now you have to try to stop me from moving again. And then I'm just going to keep moving until I can get up and get out or pull guard along the way. I don't teach you an escape. You learn where those escaping opportunities are. Jiu-jitsu is not darts. It's not archery where you could just do the same motion over and over again and just rep that out. I like to do repetitions without repetitions. Like I'll put you in that position like we were talking earlier. So I'll start you in bottom side control, like in the hawking type position where you're not already in a cross face and underhook or getting smashed. You're already in that position. So now if they're heavy on your head, that means your hips can move. So move your hips. Now they're going to try to stop you from moving your hips. Guess what? Now you can elevate your head. So now you have to keep going back and forth with that. You don't even have to have your eyes open. That's just feeling somebody on your body. It's a very tactile sport. You can't do it without the other person. I'm not going to teach you this perfect technique and grab here and do this and do that. And then you have to just keep trying to remember these techniques. I'm going to say, if they're pinning your head, move your hips. If they're pinning your hips, move your head. And I teach it the same way with the guard, like a Z guard or a knee shield. After they can't control your head, never let somebody control your head, and they start smashing on your hips and everybody wants to go to the body lock because the body lock's an awesome pass. If they're just controlling your hips in the body lock, I'm going to start getting up on my elbow and getting my head up. So now you have to worry about when you're going around my legs, now you have to get back to control my head. And then when you go back to control my head and my back, now my hips can move again. I can't tell you when to escape. You're going to figure out where that escape is through the process of going back and forth. So that's a perfect example. I'll teach a body lock pass. I'll start you in the end range of the body lock already. So that top person has the body lock. They're locked in, the hips are in tight. All you want to do is try to free your hook or beat that person's bottom knee and start working up the body. And now bottom player, don't let them control your knee. Don't let them control your head. Keep rising and just don't allow them to get to that position. And then when they do, create space, start trying to get out. So now we have this back and forth and then you could teach the whole, not the whole body lock system, but from those points, just from those live games. Those live games are just so important just for volume of training time. Times per touches. How much time can you get in these positions? Now, if we just repped it out, like I'm saying, one person's doing something, the other person's just laying there. They're not getting any time doing jiu-jitsu. And then maybe their heads start, they start thinking about something that happened during the day or this and that. No, when you're in these situations, you got to be doing jiu-jitsu. So like I try to explain, so say I have an hour class. We won't even, my warm-ups are not even warm-ups. It's basically not even a minute. If that, sometimes I'll just start you in a game already. So you do that, we do those games. games. We do that live training for 30 minutes, 35, 40 minutes, and then writing the roll in at the end. And now we're doing all those live games. We did all these different positions. Now we went into rolling. And now you did an hour of jiu-jitsu, and you probably did about, depending how many breaks you take, 50 to 55 minutes of live jiu-jitsu. Now compare that to an hour class of a 10, 15-minute warm-up, shrimping up and down the mats, doing whatever, not whatever. Now you drill for 20 minutes. So that's not live. That's just drilling. And then you get to roll for 20 minutes, maybe 15, depending on the class. Who knows how they're doing. So how much live jiu-jitsu did you really do? 20 minutes compared to almost 60. So you're getting like 3 times the amount of live jiu-jitsu. If you want to get better in jiu-jitsu, you got to do it. That's why it takes 10 years to get a black belt sometimes, because it took you 10 years, 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. Maybe we could shorten that up a little bit. Well, I'm not saying this is better than whatever, but maybe you're doing more jiu-jitsu, so you're going to understand it a little more. It's going to make it easier for you to pick up things. And I'll give you this broad spectrum of how it works. And now you could plug and play different things you want to add in. If I go to a school and so you ask to somebody, hey, show me a fundamental technique. And what's the thing they show you sometimes? Closed guard armbar, right? That's one. They'll give you one of that. Maybe a scissor sweep, right? There's no context. That person doesn't know what a guard is, and then they grab the collar, they grab the head, their leg goes over, and then they tap out. Now they put them in a live roll. That never happens. Everybody's like, no, you're not armbarring me. So why am I going to put those in a situation? One, you don't even know what a guard is. You don't know how to pass a guard. You don't know how, and if you're a guard player, you don't even know how to hold somebody down. Now you're already throwing up arm bars that you don't even know are. Then you get passed and you get smashed. And then you come back again and it happens again. And then either you stay or you don't. But I'll put you in these situations. I have these kids and I teach pinning, passing, all this stuff in one class. They can have a little grasp of each one along the way. This is Greg talks about this, where they play the whole game of jiu-jitsu in every class. And it's just these little, they've done studies on block training versus randomized training. Like I used to be a guy like, okay, we're working on De La Hiva and we're doing this for a month. But what about all the other jiu-jitsu that's supposed to be happening in that month? Yeah, you may get De La Hiva really well, but then you switch to something else. And then you're like, okay, but now I'm not really training that De La Hiva as much. I'm not training that guard. Then maybe I switch to like knee slide passing or whatever. If you're going to show up, play the whole game, do jiu-jitsu, doing these different parts. And then you're kind of start building and understanding how to move like a jiu-jitsu person. Because you have somebody constantly pressing you. Jiu-jitsu has always been a pressure-tested martial art. That's why it's been successful. I came from karate. We would just be doing side kicks in the air and spinning this and that and doing my forms. And, it's great for what that is. But then when we go live spar, I don't do anything like those forms. I got a different stance and I'm moving and doing these things. So if you're going to do jiu-jitsu, do it. The SAID principle, specific adaptation to impose demands. Pretty much you're going to adapt to what you do. Like we were talking about earlier, if you sit around all day, you're going to get good at sitting around. That's just how it is. If you're moving around all day, you're going to get good at moving around. If you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're going to get good at it. You're going to adapt to what you're doing. So that's how I like to see it. I'm like, how am I going to maximize the amount of time I do in jiu-jitsu? And I think so. You could do solo stuff, this and that, but do that. You could do that on your own time or at home or whatever. But when you have another person, use that person and let's play some jiu-jitsu.
There's a lot there to unpack. One of which was the beginner, like the day one or the 1 month person. We always think of gross motor movements in terms of like you specified something like the cross collar choke or, throwing up a triangle or an armbar or something like that. These sort of fundamental things that you're supposed to learn early on, these fundamental movements or whatever, techniques. And so it sounds like you're just putting them from day one into these scenarios so they have some sort of context of what guard even is or what even is happening, correct? Is it?
Oh, yeah. Like I play a guard game where you start with one De La Hiva hook and grabbing the ankle. This is, say, a no-gi. So one De La Hiva hook when I hold an ankle, and my other hook is underneath their knee, and I keep my hand to hand fight. That person on bottom, they just have to keep that position. Top person is just going to try to break those grips and get out. Now you're holding that guard. You're hand fighting. You have a job. You hand fight. You hold the leg. You keep your De La Hiva hook nice and tight. If you lose it, you get back to it. And then now we add on where you start trying to sweep them or whatever. Just give you a couple options if you need them. And now that person on top, what do they have to understand? Oh, you got a hook on me? I need to take that off. I can't pass your guard unless I take off that De La Hiva hook. I can't get by this without doing hand fighting first. You don't see DVDs on hand fighting. That's not the big seller.
And the day one person doesn't even know what a hook
No.
is. They're just thinking foot,
No.
there, hand, someone's grabbing hand.
Now, sometimes I'll have the teens, and then sometimes I'll have the kids that are 8 to 12-year-olds, and you got these kids that they have no idea what a De La Riva hook is. But then they could do it because you tell them, hold on to their ankle and do not let, kids love games, and adults should too. I think we need to play more, and keep your toes curled as hard as you can and just hold it. And if you can, you won. And it's amazing. And you're like, after one class, you're like, oh, this kid's playing De La Riva, constantly attacking those spaces. Chris Payne says a great thing about jiu-jitsu from the guard is the same as wrestling. You're looking for the back of the knee. You're looking for the pieces under the armpits, and you're looking for head control. It's the same thing in wrestling. A De La Riva hook is just controlling the back of the knee. And if you got a gi on, controlling the collar of the head, that's controlling somebody's head. And now you're exploding up into triangles and you're taking away that space of between the armpits. It's all the same. If somebody's in turtle and you have an arm in guillotine, you also have a darce and you also have an anaconda. All you got to do is just move your arms. It's not 3 techniques. It's a head and arm choke. It's all the same. Same with a triangle, a rear triangle, a reverse triangle, anything. It's still a head and arm choke. It's just how can I orient my body around yours. So once I get that space, like say you're passing inside control and you go to mount and you have that underhook, and then what happens? People get into mount and then they posture up and they give away that underhook that you just earned. No, you take it. And I tell my students, I'm like, do not give me that elbow back. If you have an underhook and you pass from knee slide to side control to the mount, control my head and arm, and you could take that all the way to the back to a reverse triangle. You got that head and arm from half guard. So say we start in half guard, straight cross face underhook half guard. And I'm just going to say, okay, hold that cross face underhook half guard as long as you can. Now try to free your knee. Okay, well, you freed your knee, but still keep pinning them down because they're going to try to get up. Okay, now move into side control or mount or whatever and never give up that cross face underhook. And as they start turning, you'll turn into back control. And now you're in that back fighting game we did earlier and all that stuff works. And now you're hitting rear triangles and you're like, you don't even really know what it is. But you know, if I have your head and arm, I have a choke eventually, even if I took it all the way from half guard. But instead of showing a sequence of 8 moves, you're literally playing in those positions the whole time. This constant live work in those positions. And for me, it's been an amazing experience of just a different way to learn. Like I'm saying, if you want to drill and do that, go crazy. Great guys do it all the time. But they'll be like, oh, that guy drills for 2 hours. Well, yeah, he probably also is grappling for 2 hours also afterwards. So, he's a mat rat and they're there all the time. And who are the people that get better? The people that train more for a longer time. It's volume. If you're training jiu-jitsu twice a week, I want that 2 hours or 3 or whatever it is. I want that to be maximized amount of time for you. As a coach and teacher now, every class I teach or every seminar I teach, I want it to be a good class or a good seminar. I want something going on. I don't want to mail it in. I don't want to just, give you some warm-ups, give you 3 techniques to drill and then go roll. No, I'm there to do, because it makes me better. When I watch you train, I want to see you get better and I can pick up things because like I'm saying, I'm always trying to learn.
You mentioned earlier, you emphasized getting right back
Yes.
up. This isn't something I always hear from people. Now, is this sort of like rooted in your MMA? Because typically I hear MMA guys say this, they're so emphatic about getting up immediately.
It was funny when I finally started watching Priit stuff with the turtle, because I came from submission grappling and we would turtle all the time. If you watch old Frank's pancreas fights, and if you watch one of my favorite MMA fighters of all time is Sakuraba, and he would turtle all the time. And in Pride, eventually he got kicked in the head. Hey, it happens, but he would turtle all the time, and he actually worked well. But we would always turtle because we wanted to get back to our feet, and we made you have to hold us down because we would turn our back all the time. Like we just didn't care, because we knew we had a chance to scramble, get out, and we weren't going to get pinned to the mat. Like, I hate being inside control, getting pinned. That's the worst. Like, somebody gets me in mount, I turtle automatically. Back then, I used to turtle, and they'd get their hooks, and I'd have to fight out of it. But now I do more of the defensive stuff, and I don't give you that free hook as much as I used to. But then it was funny, because I used to do that, and then I got into, like, the gi jiu-jitsu and everything, and it was always, don't turn your back. Don't do this, don't do that, you're going to get choked. And then I kind of fell into that path. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then I always would still turn, try to Granby, try to get back to my guard. And I wouldn't try to get back to my feet because I wanted to play guard all the time, right? I was always constantly playing guard because I've been doing this for a couple of years now. And then Craig Jones came up with his just stand up stuff. And I'm watching that and I'm like, that's what he's doing. You're making that person. And then it's funny because he relates it to an MMA context. It's like, if you're trying to hold me down, that means you can't punch me, right? Because I'm using my hands to hold you down. So it's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. If I'm trying to get up, if your hands are trying to hold me down, you're not getting a chance to choke me or armbar me. You have to follow me through that whole thing. So now, and listen, I'll say I am an unapologetic guard puller. I'll pull guard in the parking lot coming into class. I don't care. You know, I'm not looking to wrestle anybody anymore. So what I do is I pull guard and then I let you try to get through all my guard retention. I play, whatever I'm playing. And then as soon as you pass, I do not accept side control. Ever. I immediately start getting up. If I'm inside control and I'm just constantly trying to get my guard back, you know what I'm going to do, right? So you're going to start fighting that knee back off, keep control of the bottom knee, maybe hop over the legs because I'm just trying to get my guard back. But if I'm trying to get up, so here's guard and then here's standing up, you have to try to stop me that whole way up. And during that whole way up, I'm going to open up space to pull guard along the way. And then if I get to my feet, then I can just pull guard again from there. So that's how I teach escapes. You have to hold me. You have to pin me down. And then I'm just going to pull guard along the way. I'm going to get to, turtle. I'm going to go active turtle. I'm going to try to stand up. And then if you move the wrong way, if I feel you releasing that weight or pressure on me, then I just turn and I pull guard. Why am I going to accept side control? So now if I don't accept side control, I don't accept a crossface and underhook, I'm taking away the majority of your side control attacks. I'm taking away your crossface underhook attacks because I'm not giving that away for free. You may choke me from behind if you get there, but I'm okay playing there right now. And I want to see if you can hold me down at that point. It gets very frustrating for the other person to do that. But while I'm doing that, guess what you're learning? You're learning how to pin somebody down. You're learning how to pass and pin. That's why the body lock is such a huge pass because you already have chances to get to the upper body. You have upper body and then you get your legs free and you're already holding them down. Whereas leg drags and outside passing, you get by the legs and then you have to secure the chest or the shoulders. So I have so many more chances to get back to my feet if you're doing that type of passing compared to like a body lock pass. Like what are all the guys doing now? They're all trying to get the half guard, right? So then they can get crossface underhook and then they can smash through and then they already have your upper body collected. So now they can finish that pass. So you're going to see these games keep evolving. That's why little guys are so tough to pass. They got the good flexibility, the good hip mobility. They're never going to let you control their head. They're not going to let you control the upper body. You're going to have to outside pass, flip them around, and then they're just going to keep spinning. They're just going to spin. And it's just going to, where bigger guys, they're going to play maybe those half guard games, the underhook and all that stuff. But if you get that underhook on top, I'm going to put you back on the mat and then I'm going to pass your legs and then I'm going to have you stuck. So that's why you'll see more passes like that at the higher weight compared to the lower weight. But if you're a big guy, might as well train like the little guy. Let them still try to hold you down. It's amazing. I love watching jiu-jitsu. I love watching I have this very broad general scope I train jiu-jitsu in, but I still follow what everybody's kind of doing because then I see that and then I can add it in. Because once you develop these fundamentals of moving jiu-jitsu and understanding where you are in jiu-jitsu, it makes it so much easier to add these type of things. Like the K-guard. K-guard is pretty much closed guard. It's an open closed guard, right? So what's a closed guard? It's outside position, right? K-guard, it's an outside position guard. So say you start in closed guard. Now you open and you drop your leg. And you have you could go knee shield, you could go high. You're still on those outside things. So everything you're afforded in closed guard, triangles, arm bars, and that, you still have in K-guard. If they press their head in, boom, there's the triangles right there. But now when they pick up their leg, you underhook the leg, your leg's already on the outside, now you go into K-guard and you start spinning around the leg. To me, K-guard is great because it gives you closed guard, but it gives you extra hip mobility and movement to attack the legs. So now you can attack the lower body and the upper body in the same spot. Like the person lifts their legs, I go for the underhook. They don't like that, so they drop their leg and they try to pin me back down with their head. Now my other leg comes over the top, and now I'm locking in the triangle type. And now I can work from there. And then if they stand up, their leg's right there again, and now you go into K-guard and attack the leg. I want to teach a class one day just called attacking high and low, or K-guard's the new close guard, or something like that. Like these crazy Globetrotter names,
Rob's already thinking of the Globetrotter titles here.
I challenge myself. How can I teach this without going super technical all the time? Like, how could I make a game out of this? How could I do something like the shoulder crunch or the arm saddle game? I'm like, okay, that's a very complicated. If you watch some people teach the arm saddle or the shoulder crunch, yeah, you could play the shoulder crunch or arm saddle from like either a half butterfly or like a Z guard, and you lock. They try to get the crossface, and so you just hold their arm and you bring your top leg over the top, and it wraps underneath their arm. And now you open up all these spots to go for triangles and the choi bar. So I'm like, okay, so how could I make that a game? So I was working with my buddy, and he's, hey man, I really like this arm saddle stuff and this shoulder crunch. Can you? But I'm not getting it as much as I thought I should. I go, okay, well let's figure it out. So I started in Z guard, which is the knee shield or whatever, and I said, okay, I'm just going to hold your head like a crossface, and you're just going to put any grip you want just to hold my arm. And I go, don't do anything except don't let me get my arm back. All right. So at first, boom, I pop my arm out. All right, smash through. But then we start building these positions. Now he's holding onto it. Now I'm moving in and out, and he's just holding onto it. And then I go, okay, we kind of got that. We're just kind of workshopping it. I go, now all you got to do is get your leg over to wrap it around that open space you created with the shoulder crunch. That's it. So we play. I'm trying to smash through. The knee comes across my face or it goes over my head. And now, boom, now he's in the choi bar already. It wasn't super complicated. It wasn't whatever. And I go, now we'll just play in that choi bar area. Now I'm going to lock my hands. You hold on as long as you can. And I'm going to try to free myself. Now he's transitioning. He's putting in the Kimura. He's going to the back. He's throwing in triangles. I went and I showed that to my teams yesterday, and they already picked it up. And they don't know what that stuff is, but all they know is I got to hold this thing as long as I can. All right, this is really cool. I go, because if I taught that the old way, it'd be like 10 steps. But they already understand, and that's why like in the defensive stuff, there's a defensive guard. It's just a structure. So I just give you that structure of a guard. So they know the guard structure and then what it does. It has all the same concepts, not giving up underhooks, not controlling your head, not letting them smash your knee down, all the stuff you need to be successful in a knee shield. They already have that structure. Now we add in the shoulder crunch. Now we add in the arm saddle. But it's all these little slices of the game there. And now you're developing your whole guard game in a very short amount of time. You're not going to be amazing at it. You're not going to be great, but you're going to understand the context of it, and you're going to understand why it works and why it doesn't. That's another great thing Priit will say. He goes, I don't mind losing if I know why I lost. I get very frustrated when I don't win. I remember I used to be like that back in the day. I'm just like, oh, maybe I just didn't explode enough out of that move or, whatever. Chris Praines will talk about, you don't go to your boxing coach and go, hey, coach, I keep getting hit with this punch. Give me a technique to stop it. And then the coach just goes, well, were your hands up? No. Okay, well, put your hands up and then come back to me after that. Have that built in there, so that's where all the postures come in. They're going to have to adapt to your defensive structure. That's how all sports work. If you watch football, you watch basketball, you watch this, they come up with new defenses. It used to be the 3-4 defense to the 43 then the Chicago Bears came out with the 4-6 defense, and it always had to keep going. And then it used to be just run the ball as hard as you can until they stop me. Now everybody's passing first to set up the run because the defense got better.
So you did use the word technical, which is interesting because you said I'm not teaching techniques really per se or anything like that. So you still think people can be technical without techniques?
Yeah, because I think there's technique and then there's a skill. The technique will emerge from that skill, from the skill of doing things, and then you have a technique. There's two ways. Sometimes stuff is effective and then it just gets more efficient. So, if you're a big, strong guy and you just, grab my arm and rip it and I tap, that's effective. But if you're wasting all your energy and you go with another big guy and it doesn't work anymore, you have to figure out how to make it a little more efficient. And then that's how you get more technical. I think we mince some of these words sometimes, technical, skill. Sometimes it's semantics, and I don't want to be like one of those guys that's, just, I have it this way and this is the way I do it. I want to break it all down and be super precise. No, it's just I'm about skill, and I use technique and skill interchangeably sometimes as I keep going down this path of learning. Because I used to do a lot of the old, I read the books Peak and Talent Code, which was all about repetition. Rep it until it's 10,000 hours and all that stuff. And I'm like, listen, man, I don't know if you know, there's a lot of stuff in jiu-jitsu, and if I tried to do 10,000 reps in every position, I don't know how old I would be. I don't think I just don't know if it's possible at that point.
Yeah. I'm also a big believer in what you said earlier, like the 10-year black belt thing. I do agree wholeheartedly that we should be able to compress that down, especially with all the, the knowledge that we have now, and that Moore's law should apply here in terms of like with all this information that we have now and all this advanced knowledge, all this advanced coaching and all this advanced information in people just starting younger. Globally, I should say. That 10-year mark, it should be compressed less.
Well, I think it depends on the person. If you're training 2 times a week, it's going to take a while. But in my opinion, you could speed that up a little bit. Jiu-jitsu is such a weird thing because it's a martial art and it's a sport. When you go play basketball or whatever, you don't think about, I'm going to go down to the court, play all the time, and then I'm eventually going to teach basketball to people as much. Not that many people do that, right? Unless they're getting into coaching but I'm doing martial arts, right? So I eventually need to be able to teach somebody else how to do it, or just help the person in the class, right? If you're a blue belt, help out the white belt. You're a purple belt, you help out the other person. Jiu-jitsu is really cool in that day. And I had this thought earlier where I go, it's the one of the only sports where you could train it, do it as a hobbyist, but you could go to B team and train with Craig Jones. You could go down and drop in and train with Rafa Mendez or Guy Mendez at Art of Jiu-Jitsu. You could train with the stars of Jiu-Jitsu, where I can't go, hey, you know what? I'm going to drop in and on the practice, and I'm going to get to go train with LeBron James. I'm going to show up to the LA and be like, hey, man, can you show me how to do some basketball? No, it doesn't happen. So we have this martial arts sport that people that show up, your training partners, they're an integral part of the development, even of the high-level pros. Hodger Gracie used to talk about, he used to learn all this stuff by training with blue belts. You don't get that in other sports. I don't want it to get to the point where there's just pros doing their pro thing and you never see them anymore. The people who watch jiu-jitsu do jiu-jitsu. The people who watch basketball and this and that, they may play here and there, but they don't really do it too much. They just fans of basketball or fans of boxing. You just don't go casually box. Where jiu-jitsu, we can go do that. Like I'm in a small state, Connecticut, and there's black belts and instructors all over the place. Or I could go do this Globetrotter camp and there's 20 black belts right there. And then there's another cool thing I did at Globetrotters in Arizona. Christian started doing this thing. He called it a white belt appreciation hour. So instead of the open mat where everybody gets to train, he made it an hour and he had all the instructors or black belts that were there go on the mat, and only white belts could join the mat. So you go grab a white belt and you get to work with them as many as you want for an hour. Like how awesome is that? So like I was instructing in Arizona and it was white belt appreciation, and this young lady came up and said, hey, what do you want to work on? And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, just show me whatever you want to work on. And we trained for like an hour, and I'm like, that's awesome. It's like a private lesson. And these are things that push the art, and the people want to be part of it. They want to do this stuff. And you see why people get addicted to jiu-jitsu, and they start putting themselves in these cultures, and they go to Globetrotter camps, or they go to, watch ADCC, or they get together and stuff. It's like, it's hard to do that in other sports. I enjoy it. That's why when I finally hooked up to Globetrotters, I'm like, man, I really wish I would have did this a couple of years earlier. It's such a good time, and it's like you have great instructors and great classes, but those open mats are so important because like we were talking about earlier, doing live jiu-jitsu, because a lot of times we train in our gym and our club, and you're rolling with the same people over and over. You can kind of predict how the roll's going to go, right? Then I go there, and then you got people from Canada, people from Europe, people from whatever, and you're getting all this different type of data that you're just using, and they're like, oh, that's a cool way to play. Oh, that's a good thing to do. And then now you're learning. Every time we roll, we're learning. You go in with attention, you go in with how you want to train, and now you get to try it against different people. So I've heard other guests talk about how it's kind of like supercharges, like how much training time you get. And that's what it is. So do the classes, but do the open mats. You don't have to kill yourself. Everybody does that first. They jump in and go nuts, and they're dead in 2 days. Just take your time, get on the mats, and do that. And that's just another avenue for learning for me. I learn as much as the students are learning because I get to roll with so many different people.
One of the things I want to talk about is defensive jiu-jitsu. We talked about that in Priit Mihkelson's sort of system as well. For those of us that have really studied it and practice it quite a bit, one of the critiques of it, I would say, is where is the transition to offense? And I know Preet's been working on this and sort of trying to articulate this because it's so effective. You could sit and just play defense in that system for, a whole roll or something like that, right? Can you just walk us through your thought process in terms of how the defense and the offense sort of relate?
That's actually a great question because I go on Reddit or these different things online and I see, what the critiques are of defensive jiu-jitsu and I understand them and I understand why people say that because when you're first learning it, you have to play that defense that way because you're literally learning it. If you want to get good in turtle, you have to be in turtle. You want to get good at getting out of the mount or surviving inside, you have to do it. You can't always just get out because what are you literally learning? And it's funny. It's like we don't get mad at people for just playing De La Hiva or just throwing down passes on you and smashing you. What I do and the way I liked it, because as I played in these ecological approach type of things, is I kind of like teaching defense a little different now. Preet has his way and he's like, shut down, stay there, learn all the postures, and then start transitioning and movement. To me, the way I'm showing it now, like I said earlier, is I teach you the concept of your underhooks, controlling the space. So I could do games where the first minute, just survive, stay in turtle, shut it down, hand fight, do all your things, shut it down. Now get out. Now this is where the transition comes. And this is the offensive player is going to try to find those transitions. Or sometimes I'll just say, okay, you're on the bottom. There's a time limit. Try to get all the way up without getting pinned down. So it makes it more active. Like, it's a very more of an active defense. So you could shut down, which I don't do personally that much. I prefer to move. I think the highest form of it is a controlled scramble. I'm moving from, hawking to running man to turtle to active turtle to up, but I can do that in a couple seconds. But in that whole time, I'm sticking to all the concepts. And then if I get stuck in a position and they get the underhook, I'm not just going to accept it. I'm going to clear it out. And now I progress the roll. And now, as I told you before, now you're pulling guard along the way, and that's where the offense comes in. Or say they're attacking your turtle and they fall off, then boom, go right into your offense. And look for those things that you were protecting. You were protecting your underhook. You were protecting your hips. Now attack theirs. Instead of trying to get to side control or try to get to mount, try to get to a controlled position. That's where the bread and butter of jiu-jitsu is. It's control. That's kind of why I love the Mendes brothers originally, because their positions were actually super controlled positions all through everything. Like they were constantly winning the grip fight, winning the control. They were not even in a position, but they were getting to a control point. And then they just worked their way all the way up. That's why the joke is, what if I told you defensive jiu-jitsu was all about offense? So now when I teach people like this and I teach these kids, when you're in an offensive cycle, guess what? You're on offense, they're being on defense, and now they switch, and now we're going back and forth. And it makes it more, it's not just you try to survive for 5 minutes. It's constant back and forth. And then the transitions come, the attacks come, and all that stuff. So I'll train with my students, and I'll tell, we're playing kids like 14 and pretty good. And I'm like, okay, I want you to attack me with everything you got. And all I'm doing is playing defense, but I'm moving through every position constantly. So he's just hunting for open spots and he's just finding gaps constantly. And when he finds those gaps, I try to clear them out. And then if he gains a gap and he gets a seatbelt, now he's going to try to get the hook in. And now I'm constantly fighting it off. And then if I fight off and I see a chance to reverse it, then I'll reverse it and I start going on offense. I think people get the difference between training and live sparring. You can do both. How are you going to get better on defense unless you play defense? I watched a Craig Jones video and it was Craig Jones working out of bad positions. And nobody's going to get mad at Craig for saying he's just working out of bad positions, right? So I think you could teach offense without defense, but you could never teach defense without offense. Because like I'm saying, you can't dead drill defense. Like, it just doesn't make much sense. Okay, just keep triangling me. It just doesn't make sense. But you could teach offense all the time. Like, the majority of jiu-jitsu is taught offensively. So if I train defense, you're always training offense. So we're training both. It's all coupled together. So I'm merging that defensive jiu-jitsu philosophy with the ecological approach from like Greg Souders and these type of guys, because they all talk about the same things. They talk about Priit and Chris Paynes and different guys. It's the same thing Greg's kind of talking about, but they're teaching more from the defensive perspective, which makes a lot of sense to me. Like even before the ecological stuff I learned, I have a buddy and he was always a gi brown belt, doesn't like leg locks. Couldn't stand him, but we were training more no gi. And he's like, you know what? I eventually want to get my black belt and I still want to be confident in leg locks. I still want to have that in my game, just as personal growth. I could have had him just rep out leg entries and false reaps and all this other way, the way we teach leg lock. I said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to teach you from the defense part. I'm going to put you in the saddle with the leg and all you're going to have to do is hide your heel. That's it. Hide your heel. I'm going to attack, and then boom, I heel hook and we tap. If I get the grip, tap, tap, tap. Now he's not tapping as much. Now he's hiding his heel. Now he's starting to extract his leg. Now he's pulling his leg out and running. Now he's pulling his leg out and getting back in there. And all he's doing is the defense. And guess what? He started getting heel hooks. He started learning the position. And then we switched to 50-50 or 80-20 or 90-10, outside Senkaku, and start just there. Start in these really bad positions. And all you have to do is hide your heel any way you can. Because once you get into these weird shot and everybody just rips and then taps, no, learn the defense first for your legs. And then after a couple months, he's catching me in heel hooks. He's catching my buddy in heel hooks because we're playing in that spot. And we did not rep out a single move. We just played in the live heel hook situation, the live leg entanglement game. And that's it. And I'm like, all right, so defense first. Now the offense will come because you can't train one without the other. And it just made so much sense when I started doing it like that. And it was funny with the defensive thing. He's a brown belt. He signed up EBI style submission only tournament. And I only trained with him a couple times before. I used to train with him back in the day. He goes, okay, will you guys jump on my back because I got to have some back defense for this EBI style overtime. So we attacked his back a couple bit. And I said, hey, let me just show you something real quick. All I want you to do is look towards the choke. If the right arm's coming over, look towards the choke, try to look at their armpit, move to that side, fall to like a running position, free the hook on this side, and just roll through. Do this silly move called the stick. Even if they got the move on the choke on you, you could rotate your whole body through because they don't have an underhook. No lie. We did this position for 10 minutes. And he's never done jiu-jitsu, defensive jiu-jitsu in his life. He went and fought Friday. First match, goes to overtime. Guy gets on his back. He looks towards the choke, falls down, stick, gets out in like 15 seconds. And then he choked the guy out. And I'm like, all right. And then he's like, hey, man, can you mind show me any more of that defense? I'm like, hey, there you go. I go, you got 10 minutes. I'm not saying it's perfect. He didn't, he just did it. I'm not saying it's going to work every time. And I was so happy that a brown belt had the confidence to try something he's never tried before for only 10 minutes and do it in a competition where I did, a couple $100 on the line, whatever it was. And he just did it. But the concept was, look towards the choke, clear the hook, and rotate around. That's it. It was not these crazy back defenses and all this and that, which still work, obviously, but it takes a lot of time to learn back defense. But if I could teach you something in 10 minutes, to me, it has some value. Or I'll even do like the constraints. I take the kids, I'll take their belt and I'll tie them up so their elbows are stuck in their side. And all they could do, they could just reach like this because the belt's holding them down. And then they even have gis on. So it makes it even tougher because now I'm like, okay, person's on your back. All they're going to do is try to choke you. And all you have to do is just don't use your hands. Just move, look towards the choke and keep going. And it's amazing because they have that constraint of I can't open my arms. So now then you take the belt off. Now they just know that now their hands can actually do some fighting and they're just get confident in that position because they were in that constrained environment.
So Rob, what do your teeth and Bruce Buffer have to do with each other?
Oh man, that's so funny because when I was a Shamrock guy back in the day and down in Southern California, they were trying to make a show. It was kind of like an MMA pro wrestling type show. It was supposed to be like fake MMA. I think it was called, so they were shooting a pilot. It was called like Warriors, Extreme Warriors or something. I don't even know what it was. And then I used to know, I was buddy was with Brian Johnston, who used to fight in Pride and all these, UFC and Pride. And me and my buddy always used to do like pro wrestling. after class. I'm
Awesome.
diving out the ring. I'm doing all these crazy moves. We're stone cold stunnering each other and all this stuff. So he's like, man, you guys are pretty entertaining. I always like to try to be entertaining. I like to make things fun. So they're like, hey, we're doing this show down in LA and we need a couple guys to come down and then just take a match. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I go down there. Me and this guy, we didn't really choreograph it, but he's like, hey, man, you got any cool moves? I could do like a flying armbar and this and that. And then he was going to beat me with a head kick, right? Take a nice stiff head kick and be done. And then tap me and knock me out. So the show is going on, and Bruce Buffer, I don't think he was the UFC guy yet because his brother Michael was the main guy, the let's get ready to rumble guy. So Bruce was kind of coming up in the game. We're all talking before the matches, and Bruce is back there, and he just looks at me and he goes, you got some nice teeth. And I'm like, I didn't really think I did, and I don't think I do. And I'm like, oh, thank you, Mr. Buffer, and I I remember telling my wife that, and she thought that was so funny. So in the Globetrotters, they always have this weird, at the bottom, any little fun fact. And I was trying to think of one. This happened 20 something years ago. Like this was early 2000s. And it was funny because I did that show. They recorded it. I took a head kick to the head, a little stiffer than I thought it would be. It looked good though. And it was funny because I was going to go to Japan and they had this thing called X1, and it was going to be MMA pro wrestling again type thing. So I thought it was going to be like a work fight, they know it was a fake fight. And I think it was supposed to be against, remember Kid Yamamoto? So his brother was getting into it. It was like a young kid. And I was matched. They got me on the poster and everything. I was going to go to Japan and fight Kid Yamamoto. And, awesome. Before I was going to fly out there, they're like, so he doesn't know it's a fake fight. I go, oh, geez. I go, okay. He thinks it's real. So you got to get beat down by his brother. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, I want to work and do some entertainment, and they're like, well, then they came back and I'm like, no, I'm not sure if I want to do this. They're like, well, you can, maybe get yourself DQ'd, and then lose that way. I'm like, I ain't going to Japan where I've never been before with these guys and try to take a cheap shot on like a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old. So then they took me out. And then another guy went out there and he got like KO'd or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, it's all these weird things start coming up from all my, jiu-jitsu, MMA, submission grappling journeys,
So Rob, it's been a real joy. Where can the listener get more information about you and everything that you're up to?
Oh, yeah. The easiest way is on my Instagram. It's liquid_Rob. I just do an Instagram. I do some reels, Ascension Athletics. If you're ever in Connecticut, come by and train. Everybody's welcome. Very open gym that way. And then I'll be at the Globetrotter main camp and Arizona camp teaching. Anybody come up, talk. Just enjoy training. I enjoy jiu-jitsu.
Well, everyone, remember, I am your host, Adolfo Ferranda, and you can join and become a VIP member. Please give us the subscribe and the thumbs up and the 5-star reviews on wherever you're listening, the Spotify, the YouTubes, and everywhere else, Apple Music and everything. So, Rob, thank you so much for your time, man. It was a real pleasure. I really enjoyed this conversation, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Loved it. Thank you.
See you guys next time.